This is the jig that I made for cutting the binding channels and also trimming on the body of an ukulele. And as you can see, it's got little blocks that can be adjusted, covered with cork to protect the instrument, and they are adjustable. On the bottom I have furniture glides so that it'll glide easily on the top there of my bench. The piece that holds the router is held in with a pin, and as you can see here on the bottom I have a piece of PVC that I made out of a plumbing part, and it's for gliding on the surface, and it's very smooth. And this goes in that little slot, this piece that holds the router, and then it's held in place with a pin like this. So it's basically a drawer that goes up and down, a vertically mounted drawer, and it's on drawer slides, and it's got a eye bolt in the top of it with a rope that goes over the pulleys to the back, and it has a hook there where I have a counterweight that I put on it so that it can counter the weight of the router. And that weight is just a jug that's got some sand from the beach in it, and it's nice to have sand because you can adjust the weight perfectly so that it gives you just the downward pressure that you want on the top of the instrument. Right now the router's not on there, but here's the router, and it's hooked in there, and I have a trimming bit on there with a bearing, and so I just took the base of the router off and put this other base that I made on there, and I put it in the slot, and we'll hold it in place with the pin. And I have it so the counterweight is on the back, and it just allows the router to put minimal pressure down. This the jig ensures that the router is always perpendicular regardless of what it's going over. I clamp the whole device to the bench, of course, so it doesn't move around. So I take the body of the ukulele, and you can see the overhang on this needs to be trimmed off to be flush with the sides. Now, because the body is tapered, it's a wedge shape, and it also has a 16-foot radius cut on it. The router would not do well riding on the top, just putting it on the top. As you can see here, there's quite an angle, so the bit wouldn't really do a very good job of cutting it flush and square with the sides. So this bit that we have here is going to work really well with this device because the sides are now perfectly perpendicular to the top and to the base. We always start at the high points of the lower and upper bout and then work towards the heel and the waist to avoid any tear out with the machine. So here we're just trimming that, and we start at those high points, move towards the tail and the waist, and towards the waist and the head, the heel block area. Once all the way around, you can just zip around a little bit the sides just to make sure that it's gone. And now you can see what a beautiful job that did of trimming the sides of this. So now what we're going to do is change the bit and put on, this is the bit that I use for cutting the channels, and it's set to be just slightly deeper cut than the binding. And I also set the depth on it so that it's a little shallower than the width of the binding by a 32nd of an inch. And that way, that allows me to trim it off later after it's installed. Now, when we put it in there, we have to make sure that the sides are perpendicular to the base, which would be perpendicular to the top. And so we just make sure that we can adjust that with our little blocks that are on the sled. So once again, we start at the high points and move towards the tail or the waist, or the upper bout and the waist and the other end of the instrument. So here we're going to cut those. And I also have my vacuum hooked up to catch the shavings with that little scoop there you see on the side. And so we just cut these channels once all the way around, then we can go around the body a few times just to make sure that everything is really smooth and good. Notice that I've also sanded the sides before I've done this to make sure if there were any lumps or bumps or anything that wouldn't alter the way the channel goes in. Now when we do the channel on the top, because of the wedge shape and everything, we're going to have to adjust those little blocks so that the top remains perpendicular to the sides, and that the sides are perpendicular to the base. So here I've adjusted these little blocks to make sure, and of course it's always good to measure twice, cut once, so we're going to make sure that everything is nice and square here, and so that our channel is cut square. If your channel is at an angle, your binding is going to really be difficult to put on, and it's not going to give you a good joint either. So here we just check the square, make sure everything is really good. And yeah, so let's see here. Okay, and yeah, it looks really good. You can see the little space there at the bottom. So we've raised up the upper bout more than the lower bout to keep this perpendicular. And as you can see here, the sides now are perfectly perpendicular to the top and the top area of the sled. So now we'll cut these. Once again, starting at the higher points, moving towards the lower points to avoid tear out. And then we can go all the way around once we're there, just to make sure we haven't missed any little spots. There we go. So there it is, and we've cut the channels now for the bindings. So the bindings will go in next. That'll be the next stage.